Oh, it's what the fuck? Hold on. Why is it unlisted? YouTube streaming is so dumb. I don't know why it is the way it is. Okay. I don't know. Am I live on YouTube? I can't tell. Hello? Just needs to not play. Okay, is this public? Okay. Not play. Is it public? It's not unlisted, is it? All right, listen. Spectrum internet is trash. And my internet has been kind of wacky for a while, actually. And it looks like that hasn't been fixed yet. So I think it's my internet. YouTube's issues are like very specific. The fact that I have to like restart the stream to get the stream back is just dumb YouTube stuff. Like on Twitch, all you have to do is restart the stream and it pops back up. On YouTube, it like creates a whole new watch page for the stream because they want every video to have a separate watch page. So it's weird. It looks like we're back, at least for now. But there's a decent chance that the stream will mess up again. So if that happens, I apologize in advance. Anyway, I don't remember what we were talking about. So if you want, I think I was pretty up to date with the questions, but if you want to like ask questions or whatever you want to do, that's fine. Kafka. I'm not super well versed in Kafka, so I don't really feel super comfortable like having a strong opinion. I'm a huge Disney nerd, and one of my favorite Disney videos was your top 10 most brutal Disney villain deaths, and I agree the doctor from Princess and the Frog's death is scary as hell. Yeah, it's super fucking scary. Yeah, that was one of the videos that got me a lot of my first batch of subscribers. I should have just went hard on making Disney videos. I'd probably have way more subscribers now if I did that. Do you think having friends of different ethnic groups backgrounds itself plays an essential role in helping learn and understand racism? Yeah, well, yeah, I guess to an extent. I don't know if it like makes you understand racism, but it can help you be less racist for sure. I don't know if you can like, I mean, there's a level, like if you are like a white person, for example, like in America or, you know, another Western country, there's just a level that you just won't understand, I think, just never. And understanding what you can understand is going to require like some effort on your part, like research, asking questions, things like that. Simply like being around people of color is not going to like magically cause you to understand racism. But I do think it can help you be less racist, because when you hang around people of color, you start to learn that, oh, they're just people. They're not some, you know, they're not the stereotypes that we all think about. They're just people. They're unique. They're complex, and that kind of stuff is more likely to happen if you like actually interact with different kinds of people. What's up, Tayzon Day? Have I watched Your Lie in April yet? No. What's the best economic system in your opinion? Best economic system is almost certainly just a combination of several different economic systems. Do you think we're wasting money on the space rovers? No. You should make Disney videos, actually. I mean, maybe. Maybe I'll make more Disney videos. I don't know. Do you think any of your videos have aged particularly well / badly? Probably. I mean, there are some videos that I think that I just like stopped agreeing with, and those videos have been taken down. But there are probably some, I mean, there's definitely videos way back in the day that have some pretty cringy parts to them, where I use language that I wouldn't use today, or talk about something in a way that I wouldn't today, you know, stuff like that. So that definitely happens. You know, there's definitely some videos that still apply. Like the video that most people know me from, you're probably not really a nice guy. That video I think still is relevant, and I still agree with it 100%. I probably would not phrase some of the things that I say in that video in the same way, but the general idea of it I still agree with. How long until you get affiliate on Twitch? I'm gonna try and snag a founder's badge. Man, I keep saying I'm gonna get affiliate, but I just don't stream enough, and I keep saying I'm gonna stream more, but then I just don't do it. So I'm not sure. Told you to watch Your Lie in April. Yeah, well, like I said at the beginning of the stream, this month has been real busy for me. A lot of stuff to think about, so. Do you think sexuality and race should be treated equally? Or should one be treated more delicately than the other? I don't think there's, it just depends on the situation. I don't think there should be any general rule about which one, like it's not a competition about what situation is more oppressed. I think it just depends on what's being discussed in the moment, what the issue is in the moment. What's a video you're changing your mind on but you haven't taken down yet? I don't think I have any videos up that I just completely disagree with. Like if there's something that I just thought was like completely wrong, I will have taken it down. Generally what it is now is like I would just phrase things in a different way, or I would use different language, or I might explain it in more depth. But the general idea of pretty much I think everything that's on my channel, I haven't like, you know, I have like 400 or 500 videos on this channel, so I haven't like gone through every single one to see if I still agree, but from what I think, I generally still agree. Can you elaborate more about the economic system? I mean, I don't know. I just want a system. I'm in favor of making basic needs available to all citizens, and there's many different ways that you could do that. So I don't know. I mean, generally the way that I've advocated is just by making it free. So that's things like food, water, shelter, healthcare, and you know, there's other things that may be involved in basic needs, but that's something we'd have to decide as a society. So things like utilities, electricity, plumbing, things like that. I don't think, you know, I don't really, a lot of it is just going to require sort of a debate and discussion about how it works. Outside of that, I like competitive markets. I think that competitive markets drive innovation and lower prices. So for products and services that aren't basic necessities, that's generally how I would say that works. But it's a very broad question. Like, if you want specific answers, you have to ask specific questions. Afternoon T1J, I appreciate your work. I try to watch a spectrum of views, and you have always been my go-to reasonable woke person. I know the term sucks, but it's the best I have. I guess so. That's fine. I'm always a little iffy when people say that I'm reasonable, because it kind of implies that other like activists are unreasonable, and a lot of times that's kind of used as a way to like shut people down or silence people that are just more passionate or more less calm than I am. But you know, a lot of shit going on is pretty like infuriating, so it's should not be like surprising when people are like passionate and angry about stuff. Do you still agree with your religious debate video from 2011? Probably. I haven't watched that video in years, so I don't know exactly what I said, but probably. I'm less like interested in like religious topics these days, so I probably care less, but I probably still agree with it. Do you think racism can be over for good, or will it forever perpetually be replaced by a more covert variant of it? I mean, I think that I think there will always be bigots. I think that's just the human brain is just too cognitively biased, and we just naturally sort of react to certain things in a certain way. So I think there will always be bigots. It may not always be based on race, but we'll always find a way to like mistrust and fear things that are different. I don't think that's ever going away, and that's why any like, you know, political system needs to find a way to address that. That's why, you know, a lot of socialists and a lot of people like imply that if their system is implemented, people will just naturally like racism is just gonna magically go away and stuff like that. And that's like one of the reasons why I've never been really satisfied by a lot of the answers that people give about that. Why do you disable likes on some videos? Sorry if this is a common question. It is a common question, and I actually have a link in the description of all of my videos that explains that. And I don't disable likes on some, well, I disable likes on all of my videos except the streams and stream highlights. And it's just, the short answer is just because I think they're dumb. I think they're stupid. I think they don't provide any value to me or to the audience, so I disable them. Well, and I hide them. I don't disable them. You can still click it and it still goes through, but it's hidden. If you want a more in-depth answer, you can check out the description of any of my videos, and there's a link there. What's your favorite horror movie to comfort watch? I don't really use horror movies as comfort watch. Yeah, I don't really have one because I don't comfort watch horror. I'm not like a huge horror guy. If I want to comfort watch something, I'd watch like something funny or uplifting, or like a Marvel movie. Free is difficult because people would not like paying more tax, but yes, and thank you for asking. I guess people would not like paying more tax, but they would if they had to. And I think that once they saw the benefits that they are getting from it, they'd probably be okay with it. You talked about in your recent video about white savior complex. Do you think the same applies to racial situation outside of what you covered in that video? I mean, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty open-ended question, but sure, there are other situations where the white savior complex applies. Other activists are unreasonable. Yeah, sometimes they are, but sometimes people just call them unreasonable because they don't like being confronted. And it's just kind of a way to silence people, just because it's like tone policing, basically. And I do think that your tone can affect how your message is received, but just because your tone is unpalatable doesn't mean that what you're saying is wrong or that you're being unreasonable. What do you think of colorblind casting of historical characters? Does it risk making the past more tolerant than it was? I literally just got an email about this. Was that you? Maybe it was someone else. Maybe this is just a question a lot of people have. So essentially, I have said this many times before in many different contexts, but I think that people get to make their art however they want to make it, and I don't really feel obligated to or interested in policing how other people make their own shit. What I am interested in doing is encouraging and pressuring these industries to allow a diversity of people to make shit. So if there's only, like, for example, if only white people are making shit, then we're only going to get stories told from the perspective of white people. So, if you want someone to write about history and the past in a way that's more accurate or more realistic, then you probably need storytellers who care to do that. I'm not interested in trying to force people to make stuff in a way that they don't want to make it, but let's get more people telling stories. That's basically the way that I think about that. Likes, dislikes is more good for social media. Views tell more about how successful videos and analytics and likes and dislikes do. The only time that I have appreciated the like/dislike bar is if the video is like super, like for example, the title's like super misleading, or if the video is like a troll video or a prank video meant to prank the viewer, or the video is like super fucking low quality, like the audio is like super fucking loud or something. Like, dislikes can help you in that way. But as far as my videos, the only time I've had one time where the dislike bar I felt was useful, where it was like, yo, that was just not a good video, dude. That has happened once in my like fucking 11 years on this platform, in my like 400, 500 videos. Generally, the only time I get a lot of dislikes is if some other creator kind of sends their audience to my video and then they just dislike bomb it without watching. That's kind of the only time I get a lot of dislikes. Every other time it's just 99%, 98% likes. And it's like, cool, that's cool that you like the video. And I understand that liking and engaging with the video is good for the algorithm and stuff. But that doesn't provide me any useful feedback. It's like, sure, anyone, 90% of the people who watch the video are going to click like just to be nice or just to support me or whatever. And that's cool, but it doesn't provide any value to me or anyone, It doesn't provide me any information. Your video about The Good Place made me go and watch that show. I literally paused it for about 2 weeks while I watched the show and went back to the video. Fair. And it's cool, but you can actually do that because The Good Place is not a very long show. It's only 4 seasons. Maybe like 70-ish episodes, something like that. 80, not that many. You can definitely binge that in honestly, a couple days if you're determined, but definitely a couple weeks. I'm a little behind on the questions, so it's all good. You should be required to watch at least 50% of the video to even have access to the like dislike button. Honestly, that's something that has been considered. People have considered that as something for Twitter, because Twitter is like notorious for like really bad discourse. So it's like you should give people 30 seconds to think before they're allowed to like reply or retweet something. Thank you for the comment, Van Hoot. Hours Poetica. Do they like invite people to read for them? Oh, they do. Cool. What do I think about Nicki Minaj's statement about vaccination? What did she say? Didn't she say like her friend's like balls exploded or some shit? I forgot what she said. But didn't it, so
all right, Sanjay,
sorry, I don't know. You know, this is just one of those things. This is like we're venturing into like flat earth territory with this like vaccine stuff. It's just kind of this thing where it's like you're either gonna believe what the vast consensus of the medical community says is true, or you're just gonna believe whatever you want to believe. And you can't really argue about that. Like, how do you argue with someone that does not trust the facts? You can't have an argument about that. You really can't. So I don't even know what to even say about that. Do you think the harmful effects of social media will fade as we continue to become accustomed to it and adapt as a culture, or do you think new rules or regulations are necessary? We probably need... So things have to change for sure. As for how we do that, I don't know. I don't know if we need like the government to step in and add rules. That's kind of a scary situation. At the very least, we need to pressure the people that run these social media platforms to change, and to change how things work, and to change how their algorithms work. But I don't know the full answer to that. I don't know, but I do know that things need to change. I don't think it's going to magically fix itself. I think Nicki Minaj probably convinced more people to get vaxxed. Well, I hope so. Should Disney be nationalized now that it owns so much of US culture? I mean, probably not, but they definitely should not have been allowed to own so much. To own as much as they do. Like, ideally they should be like broken up for sure, but not sure if that's ever gonna happen. Conservatives are somewhat known for telling celebrities to shut up and dribble when discussing their politics online. They are essentially saying stay in your lane with opinions on social issues. When Nicki Minaj came out with her anti-vax stance, it felt that the left came out to say the same thing. Does that seem hypocritical? Is it the case that the left did that? I didn't really see that specific sentiment. But if that did happen, then yeah, that's obviously hypocritical. By definition, yeah, it seems pretty clear. But I do think that the left sometimes has this idea that they don't have to sort of they don't have to hold themselves to the same scrutiny that they hold other people to, because they, like, basically the idea of a lot of the online left specifically is like, I'm right, so I get to do whatever I want. The rules don't apply to me because I'm right. And obviously that's a pretty harmful mindset to have, but I definitely have seen that kind of mindset floating around. So maybe that's an example of that. I'm doing well, Irvin. Thanks for asking. a question. Do you think that context matters when it comes to non-black saying the N-word? I think context always matters, but the context of the N-word is that it's a word that is used by white people to disparage black people. That is the context. I read the article about how many Facebook troll farm pages target POC. I have not read the article. Do you think there's some gaps in content or perspectives on YouTube? I've been having a hard time finding Latin people in this essay corner of YouTube. I mean, there's definitely some gaps. And there's many reasons for that. I mean, maybe the reason is because it's hard for Latin people to succeed in this area. I think that I used to think that there was a lack of black people in this corner, and maybe there used to be, but that's something that I've noticed has started to crop up more. Is like there's more black people talking about like social issues and politics on YouTube, and I feel like that wasn't as much of a thing several years ago. And so maybe it's the same for Latin people. You might just like I would not be surprised if there's like many Latin people who are just small, who don't have big audiences, but they're probably out there. They just haven't had an opportunity to succeed yet. And who knows why that is? It could be the algorithm is leaving them out, or it could be that just people don't support them. Like, I think there was a combination of that for black people back in the day, and we had a whole conversation about the whole like left tube so white thing, and I think a big part of that was because people are just more trusting of and more receptive to information if it's coming from white people. So it's harder for non-white people to succeed in the video essay space. I think after 2020 and like the George Floyd thing, that seemed to like wake a lot of people up, and I think that helped a lot of black people specifically, including myself. But there hasn't been anything as anything like that for Latin people, so I don't know. I don't know for sure though. This is all just kind of like speculation on my part. What are your thoughts on BreadTube at the moment? I really have no idea what BreadTube is even supposed to be right now. I have no idea. It seems like the audience has just kind of like completely muddied the idea of what BreadTube is. So it's like, is BreadTube still like the popular, like, you know, quasi liberal or social democrat, or maybe like proto-socialist YouTubers like ContraPoints and H Bomber Guy and Sean and Lindsay Ellis? Like, is that still BreadTube, or did they just get gatekeeped out of the club, and now BreadTube is just the smaller YouTubers that are specifically talking about socialism and anarchy? Or is BreadTube the, you know, small grassroots movement of, you know, small creators that, you know, do live streams and shit all the time? I have no idea. No idea what BreadTube is. It's just a bunch of people like arguing about who gets to be in the club or not. Yeah, I just recently have been introduced to CJ the X. I'm gonna check out more of their stuff. You play fighting games, right? What do you play and what's your main? Most recently I've been playing Guilty Gear Strive. I also play a lot of Street Fighter 5. I'm waiting for a fucking Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl to come out. I think I'm gonna main that game. How's life, mate? Life is okay. I'm doing okay. Had a lot going on this month, but I'm making it. I think that's partially due to nature being minority populations in a certain interest is harder to break out since users will gravitate to those that are more similar to themselves. So American will generally see white people more since the US is majority white right now. I mean, I guess so. But I mean, the way the YouTube algorithm works is when you make a video, it gets shown to a certain amount of people, and depending on how those people react to it, it'll get shown to more people. So if two people make a video, but one person just gets more engagement, even if one video might be more accurate or better, if the person gets more engagement, they're going to get pushed more out into the algorithm. And the theory, the speculation is that white people are just more likely to get that engagement because people trust white people more, want to hear white people more. Sure, there's more white people, but like, for example, you know, I make a lot of videos about race and racism. I feel like if you want to learn about race and racism, you should probably want to hear it more from people of color. But until recently, there weren't that many successful YouTubers of color talking about race and racism. There were people out there who were talking about it. They just weren't blowing up like some of these other white creators were. And you could argue that's because even people that are interested in learning about race and racism, they don't necessarily want to hear it from people of color. How do you feel about reparations for Black Americans, and how do you feel about the term African American based on what we know about the origin of the word? So at this point, I mean, I don't really think about reparations that much. At this point, it's not even about reparations. It's just about equity and justice for everyone. Like, and that obviously includes Black people. Like, you know, if they change the system so that people aren't struggling, people aren't in poverty anymore, then that's fine. I don't need, you know, it's just like unfeasible to like just throw every Black person in America like a check or something. Like that's just not gonna happen. Just fix the country, you know, fix systemic racism, fix poverty, and then we're good. As for African American, I've never really been interested in the term African American. I think it's fine as a term for people that just want to be polite, that it's whatever, but the thing is, a lot of, if not most, Black Americans don't really have any close ties with Africa, so it's just a weird thing to be called. Like, I don't know anything about Africa. I've never been there. I don't, you know, none of my family that I know of has been there or was born there. Like, I have no close ties to Africa, so I don't really identify as an African American. But if that's what you want to say to be nice, to be polite, and to be sure that you're not saying something offensive, go for it. I have not played Deathloop yet. No. Ever since George Floyd, even media has changed a bit with the stated intention of being more inclusive of black people and other POC. For example, whites no longer voicing non-white characters. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's encouraged a lot of people to at least think about racism, which ultimately is good. Kind of sucks that it took this long for people to start doing it, and obviously we still have a ways to go, but you know, you take it when you can. What's the best word for it? You mean for black people? Just say black. It's fine. How does class factor in society in the US? In the UK, for example, white British working class boys are the most disadvantaged group in society. Well, I mean, class is obviously ingrained into everything for sure. But it's just every group of people just kind of has a different history in America. And obviously, just depending on your history, that can affect class. But everyone's, like, for example, poverty, the roots of poverty are different for every group, for every minority group. You know, for black Americans, there's this entire history of slavery and discrimination and oppression that is pretty unique to black people in America. Like it happened specifically to black people. Obviously other people have their own stories, but there was something that specifically happened to black people. And that resulted in black people just naturally being lower class, and being unable, you know, in large part to really like to bring themselves up in society. But that's not every group's story. Every group has their kind of own story. Have ever watched The Midnight Gospel? Nope. Should AA, I guess African American, be used to identify those who come here, Africa, on their own versus those who are descendant of slaves? I think that if you want to know what you should call people, you should just ask them. That's what I think. And I don't know, because I'm not that person. You want to know what you should call me? Just say black. That's fine. And I will say that most people seem to be fine with that. As for like African immigrants, I don't know. You have to ask them. I don't know. I'm not an African immigrant. It's similar to like, for those who have been watching my videos for a while, I used to use the term Latinx a lot, because I thought that was just a polite thing to, you know, to refer to Latin American people or Latin people without, you know, without genderizing it or whatever. But after asking around, it seems like most people either don't give a shit or don't like it. There's a group of people that do prefer Latinx. But most people don't care. So I stopped using it. And I tried to find something that I think everyone is fine with. So I just say Latin American or Latin now. And it seems like everyone's fine with that. So that's what I go with. So instead of like trying to force this term on people without really asking them if they even like it or care, just ask. Or research it, you know. I know not everyone has like a big audience that they can just ask, but you know, you can look around, ask, gather data over time. Do you feel the term POC is a bit of an erasure of the various cultures it's supposed to represent? Not really, because in America, at least, I can't really speak for other countries, but in America, it is useful to have a word to refer or to have a term to refer to everyone who is not white, because white people are the dominant group and the most privileged racial group in America. So it is useful linguistically, sociologically, to describe the entirety of the population that is not white, because there's a commonality there that is useful in certain contexts. So I think that is useful to have a word for that. Thoughts on the relationship between the Black and Jewish communities in the U.S.? I feel like Jewish POC especially get completely left out of the conversation by both groups. I mean, it's an interesting thing. I'm actually not super educated about like the Jewish community in America. I don't even know like, you know, where they're at, what they think about. I don't really know. But yeah, I can acknowledge that you don't really hear much about Jewish people of color in America, for sure. That's definitely something to look into, I think. All right, Pong, thanks for checking out the stream. In talking with Spanish-speaking Latino folks, a lot of the dislike of Latinx is because it's not linguistically consistent. Latina is an alternative I see, though Latin American works as well. Yeah, well, one of the criticisms of Latinx is that it doesn't make sense in Spanish, like you can't pronounce it in Spanish. But my initial point, my thought of Latinx was that it was like African American, is basically like a polite word that people who aren't Spanish can say. Can describe with. But you know, I guess if you're going to have a word to describe them, then they should be able to say it too, you know. And also, you know, there are Latin American people who don't speak Spanish, which is another consideration for sure. As a Jewish person who grew up with a mostly black friend group, I'd say the dominant thing was ignorance, but certainly not malicious in any way. Well, I know that there is, or at least one of the conflicts that I've seen is that black people in America are largely Christian and Jewish people are largely Jewish. And so there's kind of that can be a tense situation, because especially depending on how hardcore your church was growing up as a black person. You know, I've been to a lot of pretty intense black churches. They're pretty intense about making sure that you know that if you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to hell. So that definitely can cause some conflict between black people and Jewish people for sure. But as mentioned, there are people who are both black and Jewish. So I think a good book to read would be White Trash by Nancy Eisenberg because it talks in white indentured, I guess talks about white indentured servitude and how about being poor and white in America hides their problems in plain sight. Yeah, sounds interesting. Why likes and dislikes won't show? Because I've hidden them. Are they not show? I feel like they show on the stream though. Oh, they don't. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I've turned them off. It's an interesting issue because the Spanish language has nouns with gendered endings to refer to people, and English almost never does. Yeah, and what I thought was that the Spanish-speaking community was trying to like do something about that because they didn't want things to be gendered, and specifically they didn't want the word that refers to them to be male, because not all Latin American people are male. So that's why I thought that they were trying to replace the word Latino, because that's kind of used as like the default word. But from what I understand, most people don't care. Like, you know, there is some consideration for like non-binary people, and just the fact that people don't care doesn't necessarily mean that it's not problematic, because I do think that non-binary people get left out of the conversation a lot in these things. But that's why I say I've gone with Latin American versus Latino, because at least Latin American is not gendered. But as time goes on and I gather more information, then, you know, maybe I'll change my mind. But that's what I've gone with for now. One of my friends grew up in a Unitarian church, haha, but most of the anxiety in the Jewish community seems about white evangelicals, not black churches. I mean, that's fair, but I mean, there are definitely black evangelicals that are just as hardcore. But I do think that the white ones are like the more well-known and the more influential ones. But there are, you know, they're out there for sure. But I was just talking about like interactions between like the like people, because I've seen it before. Like, I don't know, I've seen like hostility between black Christians and white Jewish people in America, or just, you know, not even necessarily white Jewish people, but just like Jewish people in general. Like, I've seen interactions. You are the master of video structure and content. Thanks for all you do. I wouldn't say that I'm the master, but I appreciate the compliment. I'm late to this, so I'm just trying to figure out what's being discussed. I'm just responding to comments as they come. So generally how my streams happen is there's usually like 3 or 4 conversations happening at the same time. So you can talk about whatever you want. What's your opinion on Albanians? I don't know. I guess I don't have an opinion on Albanians. I've never thought about it. I'd say sometimes Jews just feel a little dismissed. My congressman is black, praised Louis Farrakhan, and when people complain, he just said he wasn't into that whole Jewish thing. Things like that. I guess so. I think the history of the Jewish people is less. We don't talk about it as much in America, especially considering the plight of like black people is so deeply ingrained into American history. A lot of people think about that more. And also, like, it's hard to tell when someone is Jewish, but it's easy to tell when someone's black. So it's just like not at the forefront of a lot of people's minds, I think. Are there left-leaning equivalents of church groups that regularly meet and participate in community outreach/building, or has primarily online engagement overtaken that aspect of interaction? Are there left-leaning equivalents? I mean, yeah, I don't know if I understand the question. Are you asking if there are left-wing people that meet and participate in community outreach? Yeah, I mean, that's called activism, right? Or even just like volunteering. Did I play Deltarune? No. Did I play Animal Crossing? I played it pretty religiously for a short while, and then I kind of stopped, and now I just kind of pick it up like once a month and cry at how shitty my island looks. Have I ever been addicted to social media? And if you have, did you do something specific to combat it? Well, I don't know what qualifies as addicted, but I use social media all the time, all day, every day, right now. But I will say in situations where it's a problem, I have done something about it. Like, Twitter is kind of awful in my opinion. Maybe it's just because I'm so entrenched in like the political space, but I think that if I didn't have an audience, I would probably just delete Twitter. But what I actually do is I limit my interactions with Twitter. Like, I have TweetDeck, and on TweetDeck you can control what you see on Twitter. So I don't look at my Twitter feed anymore. I've created a list of people that I know don't make me mad, and that's all I watch on Twitter. I don't watch the general feed on Twitter. I don't really watch my notifications. I don't look at my notifications that much. I don't look at replies that much. So basically I just look at my DMs and my own tweets. That's mainly what I look at on Twitter. And I felt like I had to do that because I just got to a point where it just was not making me feel good when I got on Twitter. I was like, man, I'm like always unhappy whenever I leave this site. What do you think of well-known activists that tend to appear in our media today? You mean like all of them? I don't know. I don't follow all of them. I know a little bit about Tim Wise. it seems like from what I've heard that Tim Wise, most of the stuff that he says is pretty spot on. So, but I actually haven't listened to him in a while, so I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of activists out there, so I'd have to like research each individual one to tell you how I felt about it. What do you think about the white liberal savior complex? The idea that they need to salvage black people or else they will remain doomed. Well, you're in luck, my friend. You're in luck, my friend, because I literally just made a video about this like 3 days ago. So if you go to my channel and look at my most recent video, I made a 20-minute video about that. Do I play Halo? I haven't played Halo in a long time. I don't really have anything against it. Maybe I'll play. Aren't they coming out with a new one soon? Or did that already happen? Since you're into D&D, are you a fan of Lord of the Rings? I don't know anything about Lord of the Rings, actually. It's kind of a weird thing. I'm not into D&D specifically because of the because of the fantasy aspect of it. I like it because of the storytelling and the role playing and that aspect of it. But like, yeah, a lot of my friends found it a little weird because I'm not like super into fantasy specifically. I don't really watch fantasy movies or fantasy shows or anything. But I'm so into D&D, so a lot of people found that kind of weird, but I'm not specifically into the fantasy aspect. I mean, I like that to some extent. You know, I play like fantasy video games, I guess. But yeah, I've actually like never read Lord of the Rings. I've never even seen any of the movies. I don't know anything about Lord of the Rings. I know that there's a ring, and I know that there's a hobbit called Frodo. That's about it. And I know that there's a actually, I'm not even sure if that's right. Is that right? Yeah, I think that's right. And just like random stuff like that. I don't know. Speaking of D&D, what do you play as when you join the table as a player? Well, I mean, I always say that my favorite class is fighter, which a lot of people find weird because people think that's like a generic class. But these days, I just try something different every time I sit down. I just want to try different stuff. I recently played a life cleric because I like being a healer. It's just fun being that support class. And I recently played a Blade Singer Wizard, which is super dope. It's kind of like a new class. Well, it's not new. Like it was like released in Unearthed Arcana, but they recently put it in one of the new source books, or yeah, one of the new sort of source books, Tasha's Cauldron, or Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Is that what it's called? No, I forgot. Anyway, it's tight though. It's basically like a melee fighter who can cast spells. Do you think there are any good models of white allyship in media? And how do you think you can distinguish between performative allyship and real allyship when we are all inherently self-interested? Well, sometimes it's pretty obvious when someone is basically just trying to make themselves look good. But sometimes it's not obvious. Sometimes you can't tell. Like, it's not really our job to distinguish. It's our job to be good people, you know, and to do things that are helpful. And we hope other people do the same, but we can't really control them. And sometimes we can't even notice people's motivations. But you know, you don't have to do that. I think how you notice is when people start doing things and it's like clearly ineffective, or it's clear that, you know, they're doing it, you know, just for the attention or for the glory or whatever. But yeah, as for like good models, I don't know. I can't, you know, I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah, FD Signifier's video was really cool. I felt a little bad because that video came out like a few days before my video, and I was like, man, this dude is like going hard on this topic before I'm even able to. But I mean, that's the cool thing about YouTube. You get like different perspectives coming from like slightly different angles, so you get like a full kind of full story. Hi, I'm Jordan. I'm a Jordan Peterson fan from Vietnam, and I love all of your content. What do you think about Professor Peterson ideologies? In all fairness, I haven't like listened or read everything from Jordan Peterson. I feel like a lot of his stuff might be useful to like younger people who haven't thought that much about like what's going on in the world. A lot of his stuff seems like very sort of almost generic, like very straightforward. You know, it's like I just watched something that was like, what was he talking about? I'm trying to remember basically the gist of it. I don't know, I can't remember, but a lot of this is like very generic, like, you know, if you are shitty to people, you know, he's like anti sort of like tribalism. If you like, oh, he has like a little speech about like victimhood, which is like, if you can convince people that they're victims, then they might get violent, which is like, yeah, that's pretty basic. Yeah. Stuff like that. And then he said a lot of stuff that I think is just really weird. Like he said a lot of, I think he's like mostly like a conservative, and especially a Christian conservative in some cases, which I generally just disagree with that whole type of stuff. I think he has like a lot of like very traditionalist views about like gender and sex and things like that. And also like that whole thing back in the day about Bill C-16 in Canada. I feel like that was a huge mess, and I feel like I think he was being a little bit of a douchebag pretty much that whole time. Have I played other TTRPGs from other genres? I've played Call of Cthulhu. I've played Vampire the Masquerade. I've played there's another one, I can't even remember what it's called. It's like one of those like really simple systems. Being a performative ally by accident is like my worst fear. Well, you just have to be thoughtful and be diligent. But even if you do it by accident, it's fine. Just do better next time. Like no one is asking for perfection, or at least I'm not asking for. I think it's unreasonable to expect people to be perfect and get things right 100% of the time, especially if they're new to it. Just asking people to try and give a shit. If you or anyone here want a great YouTube channel about Jewish history, I recommend Sam Aronow. Cool. Being generous to Peterson there, he spouts mostly drivel and really not worth listening to. I don't know. I think that I just feel like a lot of the stuff he says is just really generic. I can't think of anything Jordan Peterson has said that was like just super out of control. He said some like weird stuff sometimes, and he's definitely said things that I disagree with. And I think, honestly, like the most ridiculous thing I think that he's done was his crusade against Bill C-16. But since then, it's just like, I don't, what are you even talking about? And outside of politics, when he's talking about like psychology and things, I feel like mostly what he says is pretty interesting. But again, I haven't read everything he's done. I haven't heard every speech he's done. So, I could be missing things. Who is worse, someone like Lovecraft or Kipling? Well, I mean, I don't need, like, does it matter who's worse? I think no one should aspire to be like either of those people. That's as far as we need to go with that. You have graciously offered so much emotional labor and personal time into compiling resources and videos for so many years. How do you recharge so you're able to continue? Well, for one, I enjoy doing it. When you do something that you enjoy doing, generally it's easy to keep doing it. If I didn't enjoy doing it, I definitely would not put as much time and effort into it. In fact, I probably wouldn't do it at all. Also, I'm at a point now where this is my job. I get paid for it. And, when you exchange emotional labor and personal time for money, that's just called a job. It's called a career. Most people do it. It's not that uncommon. So, when you know that your livelihood is on the line, it's pretty easy to get up in the morning and do your job. Basically, that's what I mean. I think, but it's a little bit. I guess it's a little bit concerning that Jordan Peterson is like a hero for so many like young men, but like, if Jordan Peterson gets men to like, to think about stuff and to like be more responsible, that's, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But again, I'm not exactly sure what all he's writing about, so maybe I shouldn't say that. Do I think Eminem raised the bar too high for white rappers? No. There's a lot. There's plenty of great white rappers, many of which are as good as Eminem in their own way. Eminem is a good rapper though. I prefer the older Eminem stuff in terms of like the style and technique. Thank you, Numbed Nerves. In my opinion, the best way to avoid accidentally being a performative ally is to do things privately. You don't have to post when you donate, follow, or support by POC. Share info, but with always credit. I think that's a good idea. I mean, that's at least a good way to know that you're not being performative. Because if you don't show anyone, then it's not performing, obviously. Did you catch the practical guide to LeftTube video by Noah Sampson? I was shook you didn't show up. Interesting. I did not see that. But I'm not surprised that I didn't show up. There's like a you know, like the little tier list maker that people make tier list videos. There's like a LeftTube tier list maker, and I'm not even on it. Guess I'm not relevant enough. But again, it's like who even belongs in LeftTube, you know? So like it'll be like here's one. Hold on. Like, what is this? I don't know who made this one. This is this is someone who really likes Kyle Kalinske, it looks like. Like, this isn't even LeftTube. I don't even know what this is. But there's like Vosh, Hassan, Destiny, F tier, Jimmy Dore. So yeah. I should have checked and made sure I didn't have any weird tabs open, but I don't think I do. Let's do that anyway. Wait, how do I even... But yeah, anyway, I'm gonna go back. But yeah, I've seen a bunch of those. Oh, I deleted my chat. Come on now. Seems many black people love the hell out of Eminem. He's well loved by black people, it seems. Well, I mean, black people that like hip hop, we grew up with Eminem. He was like one of the biggest stars of the time, and he was, you know, he was kind of accepted by the hip hop community, and he was like ingrained into the community, like underground and all that. So it makes sense. I strongly disagree with not posting when you donate. It's good to show people that you're giving money and encourage them to do so as well. You know, I think it's, I don't really have an issue with showing when you donate, but if you're concerned that you might be being performative, a good way to ensure that you're not is by not sharing. And I don't think anyone's obliged to share, but I do think it also encourages people to donate. I think you're on it, or in the sequel, the guide to PG to New Left. But like at this point, I'm not like super concerned of being part of LeftTube. In fact, I made a whole video about that. I mean, the easiest way to sum it up is if you're trying to help out, marginalized communities, is it about them or is it about you? That's the easiest way to sum it up. Are you trying to look good? Are you trying to make yourself feel better? Are you trying to be the hero? Or are you just trying to make the world a better place? And you may not know the answer to that, like, intuitively. You might have to sit down and think about it for a second, and that's fine. Like, sometimes you got to sit down and think about shit. What I don't get is people who consider Lindsay Ellis bread tube, but not you. Her content's great, but how often does she even touch on politics? Yeah, I mean, I touched on this in my video about LeftTube. In the beginning, at least, it seemed like LeftTube was basically just like anyone who was like in this like little group of friends. The same thing with like Jenny Nicholson, Dan Olson, those people who are like, they were considered LeftTube, but it's like these folks like rarely talk about politics. But then there's other people that do talk about politics, but aren't included or weren't included. That like the channel Creationist Cat was one that I brought up, like Demotivator Opinion, Michael Rowlands, Christy Winters, Steve Shives, like those people. Very political people, clearly left-wing people, never really get mentioned in the breadtube conversation, because they're not part of the clique. They're not part of the crew. And I think the only reason that I eventually got mentioned in that is because I did a couple of collaborations. I was on one of ContraPoint's live streams. I was on a couple of her live streams, and so people are like, oh, he must be in the clique, even though I'm not there. I don't like hang out with them. I'm not like super. I'm friendly with them. I'm cool with them. But some people thought I was in the crew and some people did not. All right, Groucho, thanks for checking out the stream. I think the concept of LeftTube in and of itself has problems. I like when creators collaborate and shout at each other, but trying to create an in-group inherently leaves people out. And that's the thing about LeftTube is like, we didn't make it up. We weren't trying to create a group. We just made videos about stuff that we thought was interesting, and somehow it became LeftTube. Like, if you ask any of these like large creators, ContraPoints, H-Bomb, Lindsay, like none of them give a shit about LeftTube, as far as I can tell. Some of them weren't even like aware that it was a thing, like at the time, and we were talking about it. Like they heard about it, but they weren't aware that it was like this whole thing that people were debating and stuff. Like, because we just want to make videos, man. The thing with performativeness, and it can go with other social issues or even non-social issues as well, is basically the difference between talking about it and actually doing something. True. If not through donating to UNICEF or orgs like them, how do we help empower people in famines and other such emergencies? I mean, I'm totally in favor of donating to charities. You just have to research them. I haven't done extensive research on UNICEF, so that's on you to do if you want to donate to them. But I absolutely 100% am in favor of donating to charity. I never meant to imply that I wasn't. I'm also in favor of volunteering. You just have to be doing it for the right reason. Even just spreading awareness about it is a good thing to do. But again, you need to know what you're talking about, and you need to be doing it for the right reason. Isn't Lindsay Ellis more of a pop culture / film theory critic? Yeah, absolutely. But she's just, friends with Jenny and Natalie and, some of the other folks. And so she got to be in the left tube clique, according to the audience. The designation is for the viewers and not the creators. It's like goth music where a lot of the artists don't like the label. Yeah, absolutely. In the beginning, I was okay with it because, hey, I'm a left-wing YouTuber, LeftTube. That sounds right. And also, it's like, I'm, like it is fair. Like, even when you're talking about like music critics, it's fair for them to try to categorize music based on what it's the characteristics of the music and the culture and like the time, what's happening around it. And it's the same thing with YouTube. There's a very clear sort of progression about what happened on YouTube when it comes to like political conversations. There was a time where sort of like this popular feminism dominated political conversations on social media, including YouTube. And then Gamergate happened. And then there was this explosion of sort of reactionary anti-feminism, and then which kind of evolved into anti-SJW. And then there was a reaction to the anti-SJW, which were, basically mostly like liberals who were trying to counter that narrative. And I think that I was in that, and that was people like Michael Rowlands, Christy Winters, Steve Shives, other people like that. Even people like Lacey Green and Kat Black and Francesca Ramsey. All those people in the time were trying to counter this anti-feminist, anti-SJW narrative. And spawning from that, we started getting like the alt-right type shit started blowing up on YouTube a little bit. And we started getting like these people that were like really popular. And then the issue was those folks were like really good at making videos, and they were really good at making arguments. Even though, in my opinion, most of them were wrong, they were really good at what they did. And they convinced a lot of people. But then, in reaction to that, we had what we kind of refer to as left tube now. Yeah, the atheism movement was a big part of that back in the day. But then we had people, and I'm paraphrasing. It's more complex than what I'm saying, but this is kind of what happened. Like, then we had the ContraPoints, the H-Bomber guys, the Seans. These are the people's like, hey, we're reacting to a lot of this content, but hey, we're as good as you are at making the content. We're as good at making arguments. We're as good as reacting and debating. And that blew up because I think people were looking for a suitable reaction, not taking anything away from the original group of people, of which I was a part, I think. But it just wasn't as effective. Like, I think it affected some people, but we could not compete with the anti-SJWs. They were blowing up. They all had hundreds of thousands more viewers than we did back in the day. And it wasn't until people like ContraPoints and H-Bomber guys started blowing up is when the tide started to shift. And that's what LeftTube was. So I think it's fair, you know, if you're trying to analyze the situation, it's fair to acknowledge that as a thing, something that happened, and maybe even like this group of creators as some kind of cohesive group. The problem is then the audience got hold of it. And that's where the gatekeeping starts to come into play. And that's when it's like, well, who really is LeftTube? Only the people I like are LeftTube. And then also that's when we started to see the rise of leftists and socialists who were like, all these fucking left-wing people, or they're all liberals. Like, we should have a say in the conversation as well. And then, but then again, the audience got hold of it and is like, okay, well, if you're not an actual socialist, then you don't get to talk about left-wing politics online, because you're just as bad as the anti-SJWs or the conservatives or whatever. Like, we're the real bread tube. And that's, at that point is when I was like, okay, I'm out. Y'all have fun with this. I'm just gonna go like kind of do my own thing. Yeah, 100%. I think I mean, I think the audience is kind of what really threw it off the deep end. But I was just kind of saying, like, originally the idea of LeftTube is very interesting and it makes sense. But yeah, the audience kind of went ham with it. You think a person getting defensive, hostile after being accused of racism or being racist can be a great indicator of their lack of education about racism? Yeah, sometimes, but I think it's also partially because communication about racism has not been super great. Because a lot of people don't understand what counts as racism, because it hasn't really been communicated, and also because we don't have a good way to communicate it, because we only have the word racism. Like, there's different types of racism, and there's different adjectives you can put in front of the word racism. But the fact that we use racism kind of confuses people. Lacey Green shocked me. I've been watching her for the longest time before that turn. Lacey Green really disappointed me. What happened with Lacey Green? Lacey Green is fine. Listen, so around that time, you know, I mentioned Lacey Green is one of the people who had sort of like her content kind of, honestly, like, she was one of the early like feminist YouTubers, and she was like one of the earliest targets of that sort of anti-feminist, anti-social justice movement. And she was like very, very harshly like bullied and harassed and all that shit. And then at some point she decided that she was going to be more open to listening to these people and like having conversations with them and being friends with them. And she even dated one of the anti-SJWs for a little while. I don't know if that's still a thing. I don't really follow her life, but and a lot of people didn't like that, and a lot of people called it like the Lacey Green heel turn. But as far as I can tell, she didn't really change. Like, her views didn't change. She did seem more tolerant of some pretty shitty things, which I guess, you know, if you are critical of that, that's fair for sure. But I think a lot of people went a little more ham than was called for on that. Like, she just decided to be friendlier to these people, and people didn't like that. And she still makes videos, and they're, you know, I don't feel like they're not that much different than anything she's used to do. I'm sure she's like grown and evolved as a person over time, you know, like anyone else, but people kind of made it seem like she had this like massive heel turn where she became an anti-feminist and she's like fucking like super like conservative alt-right now, which is like, no, not really, or not at all really, to be honest. But you know, if you're upset that, you know, she became friends with some people who were really like pretty shitty at the time. There's a lot of transphobia going on at the time, well, and now, but also at the time. You know, a lot of like really like, you know, borderline racist attitudes, if not actual racism. Like the anti-SJW community was fucking, it was wild, dude. Like it was like they forced us to have the most inane and backwards harmful conversations. Like we literally had to talk about whether the Nazis were actually bad. Like that was like an actual topic of conversation for a few months because of the anti-SJWs. You know, we had to, you know, and a lot of that is still a thing, but at that point it was like it was the dominant political conversations that were happening on YouTube. So I could see why people were mad at Lacey for like entertaining that shit, you know, considering like she was like one of the biggest pro-feminism people, and like and like people started calling her a TERF and stuff, which I don't think applied. Like I don't think she ever said anything that was anti-trans, but she hung out with people that were anti-trans, and I think she dated the dude she dated had said some pretty transphobic stuff. So I can see why people were mad, but I don't know that she like actually changed herself. Do I take news breaks, like when you avoid the news a little while to recharge from the constant drain to your empathy? Absolutely, all the time. You might say I'm on a news break right now. I mean, I just got back from like a mini vacation, so I haven't watched the news in over a week. What do you think of the rise of this weird brand of authoritarian left tube, the ones that endorse or downplay atrocities by socialist countries? So I don't know, a lot of this is just, I don't pay too much attention to this because I just think it's a lot of people that just kind of talk without really knowing much about what they're talking about. And there's just this idea, like everyone has to always have to like, it's like 0 to 100. No one wants to talk about things in a nuanced way. So it's like, if you're like a socialist, it's like capitalism bad. Anything related to capitalism is bad. Capitalism cannot be anything but bad, and socialism cannot be anything but good. So if anything bad happened that's associated with socialism, I have to reframe my mind in order to make it good, because it can't be in the middle. It has to be good. And it's just, you know, people, that's just the way that people think when we're talking about politics. And it's sad, but that's just like the common way that people think about things. And it's, you know, it's not just the left that does it, but the left does it for sure. I forgot what show she was on before she went off and did her own thing, but I'd say she was pretty consistent in her feminism views. I can't remember what made me dislike her though. Yeah, I don't know that she actually changed her views outside of her views of like engaging with those people or even like dating them, but I do think that Lacey got way more hate than was deserved for what she did. Criticism is fine. You can criticize people, you can talk about things, but people just went in on her like she literally like went full Nazi or something. What are my go-to news sources? I don't know. I think a lot of people ask this. I think all of the main ones that you've heard of are fine. You know, I read articles online all the time. I read CNN, I read Guardian, I read Washington Post, I read Wall Street Journal. Even Fox News Online is pretty fine most of the time. The Fox News TV network is pretty shit, but the online articles are usually fine. NPR is fine, BBC is fine. Like, they're all fine. You know, they all kind of have their own biases and perspectives, and you should definitely like read more than just one, but they're fine. I think a lot of people like overthink it. Oh no, there's a tanky tube now? Now? I think there's been a tanky tube. Although I will say the tankies are probably more active on like Twitter and maybe Twitch. What's the best way to make a hot pocket in your opinion? I usually put them in a microwave for 3 minutes. Well, hot pockets definitely taste better if you put them in the oven, but obviously if you got time to wait for a hot pocket in the oven, you probably got time to make something a little better than a hot pocket. So yeah, put it in the microwave for 3 minutes, let it sit for a while so it doesn't burn the fuck out of your mouth, and then enjoy it. I agree with that. How are you? I'm good. Did I hear of the hate crime that happened against Larry Elder? I did not hear about that. What do you think is the ratio / percentage on the left of people who were always left to people who were once right-wing but turned left thanks to social media? Because there's definitely more of the latter. Well, I don't know. I think the ratio is probably changes a lot based on your age group. And then it depends on what you mean by left or right, because I tend to think that most Americans are not like super right wing. I think the vast majority of people are center to center left. Outside of America, I don't really know. But if you're like 18 to 20 to 22 or something, it's very common for people that age to completely change their minds on things, because they're still learning, you know, how to be a person, and they're not so set in their ways, and they can be convinced of things a little easier than older people can, who are more set in their ways. So I don't know. Fox News seems fine to me. I don't know. I don't know if I would say that. In your opinion, is it better to quit Twitter or not? It just depends on what it's doing for you. If it's causing you to be outraged and mad all the time, yeah, you probably should quit, or at least take extensive breaks from it. If your Twitter's fine, like, I know some people are like, Twitter's fine for me because I don't follow political people. I just follow like people that post pictures of their pets and people who post cool art. So my Twitter's fine. And if that's you, then that's fine. Stay on Twitter. But I'm super deep into the political aspect of Twitter, so I get a lot of nonsense. And even outside of politics, like a lot of the just like pop culture stuff, celebrity related stuff, a lot of that is just really nonsensical a lot of the time and infuriating. Clipped? What got clipped? Anything BBC write about Ireland is going to be pretty intensely skewed, lads, so be careful. I mean, I don't necessarily know if that's true, but I do think that everyone has their own biases in certain ways. Different organizations get to choose what they think is a priority, and there's always going to be a bias there. But I don't think most of these organizations straight up lie. Like, it's just not in their best interest to just like say false information on purpose. There are sites that do that, but those are usually like the more fringe, less mainstream sources, and those, your mileage may vary. I generally don't recommend those. Anything from like, well, you've probably seen that like political bias graph. Have y'all seen that? They like update it every year or something. It's like, I generally agree with it. I can show it. So like, wait, can I? So this is like the political bias chart. This site makes ad font media, and it's like, I generally agree with it. There's some things I don't agree with. Like, I don't think CNN is this left wing. Wait, close this. But yeah, I feel like as long as you're like in this general area, like, you're okay, dude. Like in the top, can you see my cursor? Yeah, I think you can. As long as you're like up here, you're good, dude. Obviously, like the stuff that Vice and Vox covers, they're gonna have a left-wing bias. I think that's fair to say. I don't think they lie, but they're gonna have a bias. Same over here, you know. The stuff that fucking Ramison or Fox is gonna cover is gonna have a right-wing bias. It's fine. I don't think they're gonna lie. So just kind of try to stay in this area. Down here, your mileage varies. I'm not saying you won't find anything of value on Rachel Maddow, you know, but the bias is gonna be very heavy. I'm not saying you won't find anything of value on Fox News, but the bias is going to vary. I would avoid anything down here. Down here, your mileage varies a lot. Like, you know, Daily Cost, Jezebel. It's like, it's very satisfying if you're a left-wing person to watch this stuff, but you really have to check and make sure that they're accurate. These are the type of sites that will like skew the truth for the narrative. And same thing over here. I don't even like read a lot of this stuff, like Breitbart, Federalist, stuff like that. Like, you know, like, you got to be careful. Down here, this is where you get into the territory of like, is this shit even true? The stuff that they're saying, is this even true? You can avoid a lot of that shit. And you can nitpick on how accurate this chart is. I think there's probably some arguments to be made, but I think it's a pretty good guide. So yeah, if you can't read it, I can make it a little bit bigger, I think. So basically the left to right is like, this says most extreme, hyperpartisan left, skews left, middle, skews right, hyperpartisan right, most extreme. This axis is fact reporting, so most factual, mostly analysis or mix of fact reporting and analysis or high variation in reliability. opinion or high variation in reliability, selective, incomplete, unfair, persuasion, propaganda, or other issues. And then down here, contains misleading info, contains inaccurate or fabricated info. And that's when we get into like InfoWars territory. I've never heard of before it's news, but that's hilarious. That's pretty funny. So what I would just say is stick up here, but read multiple ones so you can compare. Like if you read something in the New York Times, they might cover the same thing in the Wall Street Journal, but just from a different perspective. And you might learn something that you didn't hear from the New York Times. You know? That's how I feel, at least. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do. And if you like want to go to that site, well, you can just Google media bias chart, but the site is AdFont Media. So ADFONTES media.com. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but yeah. Well, so all right, Soljo, thanks for checking out the stream. I'm probably gonna be ending the stream here in a minute. Before it's news, goddamn, that's genius, hilarious. What do you think of TYT? I used to watch TYT a lot, but it's just there's like this segment of left-wing content that is just like, I call it moral superiority porn. It's just like a bunch of people sitting around talking about how dumb right-wingers are and how dumb conservatives are and how much smarter us left-wingers, us progressives are. And that's kind of how I feel about TYT. Like I like Cenk Uygur. I think he's a guy that like seems to actually like care about the shit that he's talking about, and he's actually like tried to be active and do stuff and like actually try to cause the changes that he wants, and I respect that. But the general sense that I get from TYT is like they just like cover these stories and they just make these like snarky quips about how dumb other people are, and I'm just not into that. I think Kyle Kalinske is a similar to that. Like I'm not really into that. I don't really find it useful. I feel like that curve is too clean. There have to be some partisan sources that are still quite factual. Well, so what the chart says is they differentiate between analysis and fact reporting. So analysis doesn't necessarily mean non-factual, but it's usually like taking something that's a fact and then like reporting it. Whereas like something like AP was like, here's the thing that happened, and that's all we're gonna say about it. We have no comment. But you have something like the New York Times, which is like, I would say the New York Times is factual, but it very clearly I think skews left. And same thing for like Wall Street Journal. I would say that it's pretty factual. I don't think they say things that aren't facts or say things that are untrue, but it skews right in terms of what it covers and how it covers things. It's not only how they cover, it's also what they cover. Exactly. Like I listen to a lot of NPR. I like NPR, but it's very clear, like they choose what they cover. There are certain things that they don't cover. Yeah, there are a lot of news sources are gated now through you have to pay them, which is kind of unfortunate, but there's other ones out there you can read. But it kind of sucks because the New York Times and the Washington Post are some of the most prolific, and they honestly have some of the best articles in my opinion, but they're both gated by they both have paywalls. Yeah, this chart is mostly web and TV media for sure. Oh no, I'm getting bots in my Twitch channel. Wall Street Journal lost me when they called out PewDiePie. Yes, that's a great example of their bias for sure. But unfortunately, everyone, I think I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream here in a few minutes. We've gone for maybe like 2-3 hours at this point, and I got a few things that I want to do today, not the least of which is packing, because I'm actually moving to a new apartment in I guess 9 days, and I'm definitely behind on packing, so I definitely need to go ahead and get that done. I do not want to be like ripping and running on the last day. But I'm gonna try to stream again maybe Friday. If I stream on Friday, it might be later in the day though, so if that's a bad time, I apologize, but it might be like, so it's like 2 p.m. for me now. I might like start the stream around 2 p.m. on Friday, or maybe 3 p.m. And then I might try to stream again on Monday. If you haven't seen my latest video, please go check that out. I dropped a video a couple days ago. It is called White Savior versus White Liberal. If you're interested in the topic, or sorry, White Savior versus White Ally. White Savior versus White Ally, that's what it's called. So if you're interested in that topic, the idea of like white saviors and things of that nature, check it out. Oh, I just checked. I am 1 follower away from 1,000 followers on Twitch. Does anyone have a Twitch channel that want to like go and hit that follow button? I'm gonna see if that happens. Oh, someone did. Nice. I just hit 1,000 followers on Twitch, so thank you on that. Maybe I can get some more followers. Well, looks like a few people follow, so we'll see. It hasn't okay, I'm at 1,005 now. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, I just looked over, it said $9.99. I was like, oh shit. But yeah, I have not been active on Twitch, and that's why I only have 1,000 followers compared to YouTube, where I have almost 300K. But maybe I can build up a little following on Twitch and see how that goes. Anyway, my Twitch is T1J_. All my social media links should be in the description below the video. Normally I stream on YouTube and Twitch at the same time, but as time goes on, and especially if I get Twitch affiliate, I won't be able to do that anymore. So I would probably use Twitch for maybe for gaming related stuff, and I'll use YouTube for just this kind of stuff, just hanging out. But until then, I'm gonna be streaming on both YouTube and Twitch, and I will do some gaming streams even here if anyone's into that. But I'll probably eventually will switch the gaming to Twitch. Anyway, check out all my links and stuff. Does my social thing still work? Wait, can I do it this way? Let me see if this works. Anyway, follow my social. If you have Discord, if you're interested in checking out the Discord server, I have a Discord. You can go to theonejanitor.com/discord. We've got a super chill server. I'm trying to build it up. We're really close. I'm actually really close to 1,000 members on my Discord server. So if you want to help me reach that milestone, you can as well. I may have already passed it. I need to check. Anyway, I guess that's it. Thank you for checking out my stream as always. And I'll see you on Friday or maybe next Monday. Go check out my this video. I'll have a new video soon, but that'll probably be a couple weeks. Anyway, thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.